So welcome everybody. My name is Kirsty. I am the head of growth and marketing at Lantern. Today we have Content is Still King, part one of a three-part series on B2B marketing. The webinar today is co-hosted by Lantern and Click to View. So Lantern is a modern and corporate fund services firm helping founders, asset managers, and investors grow their business and scale their portfolio. And then we have Click to View, one of Singapore's leading content creation agencies. So the speakers we have today, I'm very excited to share with you guys who they are. We have David from Click to View. He is the editorial content director who leads lots of content strategies for a wide range of brands in numerous industries, including Google, Microsoft, Barclays, and Property Guru. We also have Chris, who's a very passionate visual storyteller who's worked extensively with Visa and National Geographic. He's also been published in Men's Journal, Rolling Stone, and the Washington Post. So I think for a lot of you guys attending the webinar today, you're obviously curious about how to build a good content strategy, or you might even just have questions about like how important is content really. So I think today's webinar will be really, really insightful. And then we have the format, which will be a presentation, some actually really nice video, and then we'll kind of open it up for a little bit of discussion and Q&A. If at any time you guys want to just raise your hands and ask a question, you can do that at the bottom of the screen there. You can just enter a question and then we'll address it at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to David. David.
Hey, hello. Thank you, Kirsty. Thanks very much. And thanks to Lantern for helping to organize this. And thanks to everyone for joining. Let me just share my screen here and hope that it works. Can everyone see the deck? Does it look all right? All right, wonderful. So when I was told the topic is, why content will always be king, the first thing I wanted to do is just find out, well, is it still king? Is that actually true? So I searched for a few stats, and to get started, we'll just sort of frame it this way. So right now, content marketing revenue worldwide currently is about 76.9 billion US dollars, and it's projected to go all the way up to 137 billion in 2026. So I'm kind of assuming that people wouldn't be spending this much money on it if it didn't provide some sort of value. And the next slide here is, let's see, get over here. Why can't I change my slide? There we go. This is the share of organizations with a content marketing strategy in place worldwide. So I believe for 2020, oops, sorry. Yes, for 2020, it's 84%. For 2021, 97%. So most organizations that have any kind of marketing or advertising are also using content marketing at this time. So, and then why are they using content marketing? Here are the leading goals of using content marketing as of November 2021. So create brand awareness is the largest, 88%. Educate the audience, build credibility and trust, generate demand leads, generate sales revenue, nurture leads, and then down to sort of the smaller reasons, building loyalty, support the launch of a new product, drive attendance to events, build a subscriber audience. So those are all the kinds of things that content marketing can do for any size organization, actually. But we'll kind of come back to these topics because it's important to know precisely which of these you're trying to accomplish when you generate content and put together a strategy. You really need to have a clear idea what you're trying to accomplish. So what is content marketing? And I will say this image and this heading is from our blog. Click to View is a content marketing agency. We are constantly publishing blog articles and sharing them in our newsletter, both forms of content. And that is one of the, so we try to demonstrate for our audience and for anyone who's interested how content marketing works. And it's sort of our own internal sort of way to build our knowledge base. And it shows what content marketing does. And it is a good example for any of our clients who are looking to do something similar. And we produced this article on what is content marketing, because I frequently get the question from a lot of people, including my family members, what is content marketing? It's one of those terms you might hear a lot, but some people don't know exactly what it is. So content marketing is creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content. It should be consumer-centric, answer customers' questions, and pique their interest. And of this, I think the takeaway terms are valuable, relevant, and consistent. Those are the three key things that any content marketing strategy has to do. And I believe, in my opinion, the thing that differentiates content marketing from other forms of marketing or advertising is the fact that you're trying to give something of valuable to your audience. You have to share something that will help them in some way. It cannot just be hard sell, promotional content. You have to have something, some angle, perspective, or information that you're sharing that's unique. And how do you create great content? Number one, have a strategy. And this is what I meant referring to those topics that people use content marketing for. You need to know what you're trying to accomplish. Do you want to get leads, generate leads? Are you trying to drive traffic to an e-commerce site? Do you want just brand awareness? You really need to know what you're trying to do. The second key point is create content that offers value. And Lantern is a great example. And that is kind of how this whole series started. Is I was talking to Kirsty and Annabelle that I think Lantern is one of the best examples of pure content marketing out there, because if you go to the Lantern site and look at their blogs, they are giving, relevant, valuable, and consistent content. If you are looking to start a new business, if you're like outside of Singapore, you want to know how it works to start a business in Singapore. If you're thinking of having a startup and you don't know how to raise funds, all this information is on Lantern's blog, and it's just a really excellent resource. And it shows that they are knowledgeable. It builds trust, and then ultimately it can drive leads for Lantern as a business, and they can get new customers. And as part of that, you want to add a new perspective unique to your brand. This is where the creativity comes in. And this is where what you're doing is, an actual takes a strategy and there has to be some skill to it, a little bit of creativity. You can't just copy and paste some facts and figures. And this is where it really needs to be unique to your brand. You have to think, what is it that your brand, whether it's yourself, and it's your thought leadership content, whether it's a small company, whether it's a huge company like Visa, what is it that that you can add to the conversation? And the third part is be consistent. That is because the way the attention economy works, there's so much content. It is a constant stream. One of your main challenges for all of us, for everything, is to get your content to be seen and try and break through the clutter. And part of that is you have to be consistent. If anyone does search and you're lucky enough to your page or something comes up in search, and then they see that the last post is from like 2017, people are just going to skip it. That's not fresh enough. You want to see something recent. So that's why Content Calendar is a big tool for content marketing. You need to have a long, like a 6-month or 12-month view of what is it you're trying to share with the audience, and how regular that's going to be. The actual period of regular posting is kind of up to you, and it varies. Big brands that have huge teams, will post multiple times a day. Smaller brands with smaller teams, want to have something, they may spread it out where they'll have weekly or daily social posts, but new content like a blog post might be bi-weekly. There's companies with weekly newsletters, monthly newsletters, quarterly newsletters. It really depends, but you just need to make a plan and stick to it. If you decide on weekly, you better keep it up with the weekly posting. Now, this is how to tailor content to suit different buying cycle. And this image, I'll say on the left with the funnel, is actually an image that's from our blog as well. We have our own team of designers, and they're always coming up with nice images to accompany our content. So that is the content funnel. We'll get into this a little bit more on the following slide, but essentially up at the widest top, you've got awareness, and it goes down through evaluation, conversion, and delight. And let's go over that in some detail now. So awareness is also known as top of the marketing funnel, or tofu. I love tofu. I don't know about you, Chris, but I eat it all the time. This is the broadest sense of content. And when you're generating content for the top of the marketing funnel, at this point, you can assume the audience has no idea who you are or what you do. You can really break it down and explain things in the most general, basic terms. And that serves as that sometimes that can be a really good SEO strategy as well, because if you're selling washing machines and people are searching, like, how do I wash my, $1,000 whatever piece of clothing, your washing machine article might come up, and you can really get into some really explanatory content. And the content pieces should be informational and educational, short and digestible, and this could be social media posts, infographics, and blogs. You'll see a lot of infographics that are in this top of the funnel kind of awareness space, like listicles and things like that. What are the top 10 ways to lose weight or something like that? Those are the sort of really basic top of the funnel types of content. Moving down into the middle of the funnel, or evaluation, this is where you assume that your audience knows something about what you do and what they're looking for, and they've moved into the considering and comparison stage. So you can, at this stage, think of content that's more targeted information, such as webinars, such as this, white papers, case studies. Case studies are a great example. When people are in the comparison stage, what they really value is to hear other people that are similar to them, that had a similar problem, and to hear how they solved it. So that's why case studies, whether it's a video case study, written case study, is really important at this stage. And videos are also a good choice because science has proven that most people are visual learners. So that's a great thing to help your message get through. And I would say that this is where you can be in a more comparison sense. You can start to bring in more product specific type of information at this stage, because people are wanting to know what features are they going to get, and what are the cost benefit ratio to the different features they're paying for. Those are all things you can start to include at this level. And if it does have good information, then it helps build trust and credibility for your brand with your audience. Moving into the conversion, or bottom of the funnel, this is the final push to decide. Here's where you can really be explicitly product centric and specific. You can start to crow a little bit about your great features, the things that you have that make you different from your competitors. Animated explainers are really good for this, and we've done that for a lot of our clients. And you'll see now, especially as in the B2B marketing, you have new fintech companies and new technology companies where their product is something that people haven't used before, and some of them can be very complicated or very new to people. So you'll see lots of animated explainers trying to break down what is this new facet of fintech, or that's going to help you in your life. Conversion, though, to convert people from just a reader of your content or consumer of your content to being a customer does take time. that brings us back to the consistency element of content marketing. It takes time, and that's why you need to be thinking that smaller conversions like a newsletter subscription should also be considered a win. And that can be another goal that you have. And you can look, if you can get people to subscribe to your newsletter, that is a great kind of milestone marker, and it lets you know that you're doing something good. And over time, it will move on to converting them into a client. Excuse me, sorry. So Delight, this is a part of the marketing funnel that a lot of times gets left out. People don't think about it. But this is after someone has become one of your customers, they've used your product or used your service. You want to retain them and build loyalty. And here's where you can really be fun and be creative. If you look at a lot of the content that, for example, one of the companies I love to follow for their content is Lego, the toy Lego. So much of the video that they have, they don't have to sell you on Lego anymore. They know you like Lego. So they just have these great videos of people doing wonderful things, creative things with Lego, just to keep people interested and have fun with it. You can also think of your direct content like emailing exclusive offers, special promos, discounts, or events to your customer base. That's also content marketing and a good way to keep them engaged and build that loyalty and make them feel special for having been a customer. This is also where user-generated content can come in. Competitions, quizzes, having people submit things in different formats. It's all a way to kind of delight them and keep them interested and aware of your brand. So how to get started. This image is from another one of our blog posts as far as DIY content marketing, because the first question you have to ask yourself is, are you going to do this yourself, or are you going to outsource it to a vendor? So when it comes to DIY content marketing, the pros, of course, is cost savings. It can be helpful if you have a very niche content scope that might not be, might be difficult for a vendor to get up to speed with. And it allows you to have a complete overview with your content marketing strategy. The cons, of course, it can be time consuming. You can end up incurring additional costs that you didn't think of. And content marketing is a specialized field, and it does take a lot of time. So if you're going to do it yourself, you need to be aware of the time that you're committing yourself to. So 50% of B2B marketers surveyed do not outsource any content marketing activities. They do it themselves. And if you're going to do it yourself, you want to define your goals and objectives, which we've discussed already. Identify your audience personas, which that's another tool that content marketers use. For big brands like Visa, I'm sure they would pay a lot of money to have research firms actually go and then also scour through the first party data that you collect to really build out a statistically meaningful audience persona, which includes, like age, demographic, the kind of buyer's journey they're on. A lot of smaller brands, you really can't do that. You may just try and think about the different types of segments of people that you're trying to reach, knowing that they're going to respond to different types of content. You want to have a content calendar, as we discussed again. Content calendars are great to keep you on point, keep you regular as far as duration and of posting. It's also very important to be thinking ahead so that you can incorporate the different dates as far as special holidays, seasons, things like that. You don't want to be coming up to Black Friday sale and then realize you don't have any Black Friday content and tomorrow's Black Friday. You need to think ahead. Then you'll need to develop your content yourself, which it depends what skills you have in-house. Are you a creative person that can do designs or can make an image post that's going to pop uh, engage viewers? If not, are you able to just have social posts that are text only that will get people's attention? Are you able to do video on your own, which these days with the iPhone, yes, some people are really great at doing their own video content all by themselves. But that's something you'll have to keep in mind. Are you, if you're going to do it yourself or with a small team, do you have the skills in-house to do that? Then you distribute your content, which is through the different channels, whether it's social media like LinkedIn or Twitter, YouTube, direct email, or even if you're going to put money behind it for some paid media campaigns. And then keep track of the analytics. That's very important, something you'll want to take advantage of. There are various tools that are available to help you track analytics. But if you're not tracking it, you're kind of, it's a way, in a way, it's a wasted opportunity. You're not really getting the value out of the content that you make. So if you're going to DIY and you're looking for resources, as I said earlier, we actually have a lot of resources on our blog, click2view.asia. You go to the blog page. We're always putting new blog posts up. We try to give real advice that will really help you if you're doing it yourself. In fact, the blog that I mentioned on DIY, if you go to it, there's actually links to all kinds of resources of where you can find best practices, where you can find the tools like the analytic tools that are free that you can use, etc. And not just our blog, but one thing, and I'll get to this again, one thing about content marketing professionals is they like to brag and they're always sharing their successful executions. So if you search, you will find lots of good information from Click2View and other content marketing companies that can really help you if you're going to do it on your own. And of course, if you want to outsource it, you're welcome to email us. We'd be happy to talk to you. Reach out. We can discuss any kind of needs that you might have. And before I pass it over to, well, you know what? I'll wait now. Kirsty, we have some questions that have been emailed to us already. I have them here. We'll get into this. And I know people have asked some questions already, but I'll let you pass it over to Chris and we'll discuss some of his videos and then we'll, I guess, can get to the Q&A session.
Yeah, thanks so much, David. That was super insightful. And I think for any beginner, that's like a really, really good intro to content and some tips on how to build a kind of good strategy. Yeah, we do have a ton of questions, and I think there'll be quite an interesting discussion coming up, but I would love to now hand the mic over to Chris, who's going to share with us the campaign that he worked on for the 2018 Winter Olympics in Korea. Some really interesting stuff. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you so much. Just a wee bit of background on myself, just before we get going. I've been a PR guy. I have worked as a journalist. I've worked as a photojournalist, and then I was a content director for Visa for 9 years. So what you're about to see was part of a campaign that we did around Visa sponsorship of the Olympics in Pyeongchang. And I worked with Click2View on these videos. This is what you're going to see is just one of a series. And then after we're done watching it, I will get into all the details of it and like why it was successful, why we did it, the outcomes, the KPIs, etc. And it'll be self-evident once you've seen it.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. Hopefully it will play and we'll all hear it. Here we go.
This is a train to Pyeongchang.
Okay. Thanks for playing that. So when we were doing research on the Olympics, trying to come up with some engaging content, we did a little bit of SEO and keyword and just phrase search. And we found out that people that were traveling to Pyeongchang really had no idea how to get to Pyeongchang from Seoul. So when we went through everything on the internet, including the Olympic site, you really couldn't get much information about like, okay, so I land in Seoul, and then how do I actually get to Pyeongchang? So we created this video very last minute, along with two others. One was good places to eat in Seoul. And the second one was when you're not at the Olympics, fun stuff to do in Seoul, because we found that a lot of people were just going to Pyeongchang for the Olympics, but were staying in Seoul. So we tapped into the travelers that were arriving with their visa cards in hand, and things that they could do, how they could get to the events, and then stuff to do when they were thinking about Olympics. And this one tapped into how do I get to Pyeongchang? And in the end, I think we ended up with about more than 100,000 organic views on this video alone, just based on the fact that that's what everybody was searching for. So we had this version, and I think we also did one in, I don't remember, it might have either been in Japanese, it was one of the European languages. And it, like I said, it played around the world, and it was of use to our audience. And the lady that you see in there is actually she's a Korean influencer, and we've used her on several different occasions. And we created another travel series with her about solo women travelers. And so we had her come to Singapore, and we created a whole like series of adventures and glamour that she had while she was here. But anyways, this was one example of creating content around SEO and what it actually means for, like, if you're a marketer and you know that something is coming up and you know that you can actually latch on to what people are looking for in Google, then this is what you do. So, but which also brings me to my second piece, which is don't always rely on SEO. Back to you, David.
Okay. Well, Chris, can I also ask you, from Visa's point of view, what do they feel like? What is this communicating to the viewer that's important to Visa? How does this work into their bigger message that they're trying to share?
Well, obviously, as part of the sponsorship, it was appealing to the audience of visa holders. And as you'll see, we were rather subtle and not so many ways that you can use your Visa card all over Seoul, and also to pay for the train. Mm-hmm. And how to pay for the train. It was literally shown, like you walk up to the machine, you put it in, press all the buttons, and mm-hmm. You're off to Pyeongchang. And then while you're on the train, you could also use it to buy drinks on the train. And then when you're in Pyeongchang, you could also use it to pay for the taxi. Mm-hmm. So it was all about Visa, but it was done in a rather subtle manner. We also did, like I said, we did a whole series of travel pieces before this, probably 16 different variations of just travel pieces of people either going to Seoul or going to Pyeongchang or experiencing the sights and sounds of Korea. So it was all geared towards everything that we showed you could do with a Visa card.
And Chris, I wanted to ask you also, based on everything that I was saying, and as a content provider, kind of being at the level that we're at, I wanted to ask you your perspective, having been, content director for Visa, such a huge brand with a, global presence.
Yep.
What is it like being in that position? What are you thinking about, and what are you tasked with doing by your higher ups when you're trying to generate content for such a huge company like Visa?
Well, in the end, I work for the communication side, not the marketing side. So the marketing side was actually tasked with revenue. So a lot of their KPIs were revenue based. A lot of what we did was more brand awareness based. So like what you could do with an ad, say, even if it was on social media, is you can actually track whether or not your ad is leading to higher sales. So let's say there's a new card promotion or something about contactless payments in Singapore. You can pay at hawker stalls and then they run ads. And then you can actually count whether or not that works. Something like this, it's far more nebulous. Your KPIs are more organic click-throughs than it is. We also paid. There was also a paid aspect to this. And between organic and paid, I think we had like hundreds of thousands of views on these because we were trying to hit all the markets where we thought, the audience would be interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as say like what you're trying to do, it's very different from marketing because you're not really selling anything. You're selling more the brand and, awareness and announcements. And it's very hard to actually say that announcement caused more sales or sales to rise or more revenue or more buyers. But I always called it, when I worked at Visa, I always called it feeding the dragon. You actually literally have to just create content sometimes just for the sake of creating content, even though it doesn't have a direct sales purpose. It's just more about awareness. And when you put it up, it may or may not have an immediate effect. But like I have, just for fun, I was taking a look at like one or two of the videos that I had put up at Visa last year, and they were still getting hits. So people still look at the stuff over time, and it's often just a branding exercise.
Right. And it reminds
If I can
me-
just,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. No, if I can just add to that, I think just speaking from Lantern's perspective and what we've been doing to give a little insight to the audience about how we've kind of connected the content and brand awareness piece with actually perhaps like driving revenue. I think Chris, you pointed out a really good thing where you guys look at how content is performing over time and kind of understanding that it is just building brand awareness. But once you're able to see which pieces of content are getting a lot of views, getting a lot of downloads, getting a lot of clicks, you can actually then look at how you can leverage that landing page, for example, to drive actually very specific call to actions for, say, filling out a contact form or reaching out, to the team. But it's really just leveraging the environment that has garnered a lot of kind of attention, and then looking how you can make that connection to actually driving some revenue. And that's something that we've been doing. So we're now looking at, we've written so many blog articles and ebooks and we ran webinars, etc. But we're now looking at, what pieces of content are top performing and how we can make those pages, for example, drive a lot more leads for us, be more thoughtful about the CTAs within that page. So yeah, I think it's brand awareness, but then you can also kind of be creative and think about how you can drive more leads from the content itself.
Yeah. It's funny because the more evergreen it is, obviously what you just saw was something that's not evergreen, but it latched on to, what people wanted to know. Yesterday, I was trying to look up something on the company Bosch, the German company Bosch. And I was trying to find one of their blogs because I was just trying to get some information. So I typed in Google, trying to find the thing that I was looking for, the piece of information. And it popped up, and I have Uber Suggest on the side of my Google search page. And the most popular thing that popped up of Bosch was actually Trek bikes. And it was because they sell a piece of Bosch equipment for one of their e-bikes. I couldn't find what I wanted out of Bosch because obviously their search engine was off somehow. But I could certainly find it. I could, you look up Bosch and I got Trek. So it went right to Trek's bicycle selling page, which I thought was pretty funny. So you have to be like, when you're trying to actually come up with something that is SEO, is based on SEO, you have to be obviously really careful about how you word it, how you create the search terms and what have you, because you'll end up like Bosch, me going to track.
Mhm. Yeah. And SEO is its own kind of specialty. There's really, there's a real benefit to hiring an expert to SEO, because it is just a lot of details that your average person
And just the way you like put phrases together, like this word and that word, and put a sentence together. It's not even a sentence, just a phrase.
Mhm.
That can totally change like how it shows up in Google.
Mhm.
So I remember on this one, I worked with another colleague at Click-to-View, and we did a whole thing on just like, so how are we going to make this thing stick? This piece that you just saw, so that we were sure that it was going to go Pyeongchang, it was going to be train, it was going to be Seoul.
Mhm.
It actually wasn't that hard because the search terms were pretty broad. But yeah, we wanted to make sure that it was a huge, if you're looking for how to get there, this popped up, and it was the first thing that popped up, and I think actually it turned out to be one of the top 5 links.
Good.
So I'm just conscious of time, and we do have quite a few questions from the audience. So I'm just going to go through them. And then if we do have some time left over, we can also discuss a few other questions that we've received prior to the webinar. So the first one is just working backwards. Chris, you mentioned that you did use an influencer for this campaign. And so one of the questions from the audience is, are influencers primarily only beneficial for B2C content marketers? Are there any good examples of B2B brands using influencers that have been successful from your guys' experience? Jump on this. I think
Yeah,
for
I'm sure there are.
So for B2B, it's not, we wouldn't really call it like influencer marketing. It's more about thought leadership, right? And so, for example, if we're in I'm just going to speak for Lantern, we're in fund services, we're in corporate services. We basically help businesses start up in Singapore if they want to. So there's a lot of like entrepreneurs and tech founders who come to us, and we don't use necessarily influencers for our content, but we, for example, do work with a lot of new CEOs, a lot of tech startup founders who join our panels, who attend our events. They might write something for us. And I think that's where the influencing comes in, is that they've just had really relevant experience to our audience. And so therefore they're able to influence, but not so much that, they have 500,000 followers on Instagram, right? Or Facebook. It's more that thought leadership.
Yeah, we call them micro influencers. So like, if you're really into economics, there's a whole bunch of people that you wouldn't know that are actually used for B2B, and who are actually influencers. And some of them are like ex-Fed members, and you won't know them, but if you talk to a banker, they'll be like, oh yeah, we've got to have that guy on our panel, because just having him on the panel will lead to all kinds of social media surges.
Right. Yeah. There's also another term, Chris and Kirsty, thoughtfluencer, that's being used now.
Oh, the portmanteau du jour.
Right. but I would say, yeah, when it comes to B2B, it is the thought leadership is kind of the arena that, as opposed to a real true Instagram influencer. All of the, like Barclays is a good example. They just had their Barclays Asia Forum, which is their biggest annual event in Asia, and it's for their clients. But the panel are all A-list names, or typically A-list names of people that come, like Richard Branson or Ban Ki-moon, people like that. They're not promoting Barclays in any way, but just their presence lends credibility and gets more attention because they're there.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember at Visa we had our economist, and we ended up sort of pushing him as our influencer, and he actually got quite a large following. It took some time, and it was actually over the course of about a year's worth of video, and his topics were just very current issues around the pandemic at the time. So by the time we were done, we had, his followings went from say like 1,000 up to 8,000-10,000 people. So
And that answer actually segues a little bit into this next question. Are there any tips to encourage not only UGC, so user generated content, but also employee generated content? So you guys spoke a little bit about, bringing in employees from the company to kind of represent the brand, but how would we encourage that?
That's a hard one. It's really a hard one because it always starts out with everybody being very enthusiastic. And then in the end, like you find that the enthusiasm burns out very fast. So it has to be something that's constantly driven within the organization, and somebody actually has to take responsibility for it. So if you are, like a lot of people are very good with their mobile phones, but then you actually have to do stuff to like what they're creating. Otherwise, it's just a hodgepodge of content that goes up on some internal site or some blog site.
Because it takes someone dedicated internally to do it. As far as firsthand experience that I've had with our clients that are sharing user-generated content, or they want internal engagement within the company, the tried and true method is a newsletter. Because that takes 1 or 2 people to coordinate the newsletter, and they can kind of curate anything that's being generated by other people, and then it's something standard that can be easily understood by everyone. Other companies have done short, like limited runs of things like another client, they did their own podcast that was just internal. They shared it on their like internal server, and it was for a specific reason. They wanted to basically introduce and sort of let people know the personality of the senior C-suite level of a certain department with wider range of staff. So it was kind of a very personal roundtable podcast discussion, and then it was shared strictly. I think they sent a direct email link with direct email to everyone, had a link to the internal server to watch the podcast, and they did, I think, about 8 of those, and that was just for a specific purpose. But yeah, to Chris's point, something like that, it really comes down to the dedication of resources, of man hours to keep something like that running. Because over time, everyone has their own duties. It's really hard to add on to someone else's duty to try and make sure that UGC or whatever is being shared internally.
What I think what a lot of companies, when they start on a journey of social media, is that they don't realize just literally how labor intensive it is. The whole chain of what has to happen, and then counting it, and then justifying it, and then it just turns into like you'll have a crew of 2 25-year-olds, and then by the time you're done, you'll have a senior manager who's been or a senior director and a director, and then 5 people counting everything, and then you'll have 5 agencies trying to create videos, and it just turns into like, you can do it the cheap way, but you still need a large internal infrastructure to actually justify and monitor it and keep it going. It's not something that you can just do and then, okay, we're going to do this for a year and then move on. It's something that just sort of builds on itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings me back to my point, is that you really need to have clear objectives of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you're just doing it because It sounds like a good idea. It can really peter out, or it can become its own. It can snowball and become its own.
Oh, its own monster. Yeah. The 800-pound gorilla in the room, our Facebook page, that kind of thing. Yeah. Our LinkedIn page, oh boy, And it like I said, it just depends on like how much, I always say you can spend, $50,000 on it, or you can spend $150,000 on it, or 1.5 million bucks on it. And it just depends on like who's your audience and what are you trying to get out of it in the end. There, I always say there is a reason, like just going back to the numbers that you had shown before, there is a reason why in the whole world's advertising budget, this doesn't just include like, certain countries. This is like the whole world, probably excluding China, because we don't really, there is a great wall there. Facebook and Google gobble up half of the world's advertising budget, because everyone's trying to figure out how to like use those two platforms to get attention. So, and then the rest of the world, all those newspapers and everything else are left fighting over the other 50%. So, and that, that shows you just how powerful a lot of, it may or may not be advertising, but it's also just how, how critical content marketing is.
So we have another question here. And I mean, you mentioned that you could spend 100,000, 1.5 million. So there's a question about budget allocation actually for content creation across top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Any recommendations? I mean, this is a pretty open-ended question, and also I think really entirely depends on your business and kind of your overall goals. But is there like a beginner's kind of percentage allocation?
Like the content budgets inside a corporation are tiny compared to the actual advertising budget and the marketing budgets. So I know that the budgets at Visa and the department that I was in was just literally a fraction of what the full marketing budget was. I often looked at their budgets with great envy. And I always thought, boy, if I just had that money, But if you're just starting out and you've just started some small company, you can actually get a lot of traction, either, as David was saying, just coming up with something that's cheap and cheerful, to start. And, you build yourself a little blog, and then you start using that blog as sort of the base. And then you start building out to other social media platforms. And often it's not so much the content itself, it's how often you're actually addressing a slowly building audience, which leads me to the other thing, which is time. So you're not going to have success overnight with any of this. You're going to have to take the time to see what's working, what's not working. Maybe you try some video, see if that works. Try a little bit different video, see if that works. Try some writing, try animations. I know that a lot of companies are now using Canva to do all kinds of Canva, which works great. And if you're just looking for social media posts, you can create all kinds of very creative, beautiful work on Canva, and you never have to hire a graphics designer because it's all sort of AI'd. But, I would say, like, if you're just starting out, your budget doesn't need to be much, but then you have to be ready for a little bit of success, and then be willing to up your budget to 5% of your marketing budget or 10% of your marketing budget, and then just keep on pushing it up, because the other advantage is it bypasses all the ad filters. So when you're actually doing this kind of thing, you end up you'll have your advertising, which gets stuck, no one ever sees, because your mobile phone will let it. And then you'll have, say, like something that shows up in someone's social media feed, and then they'll click on it, and then you'll get attention because it's not blocked. So there's also that advantage.
And I would say, I mean, I don't think of it so much as percentage of budget, but I think of it as just percentage of how much content And, the way I look at it is at the top of the funnel awareness, you need a more variety and constant stream of fresh things being sent
Yeah.
out there and being shared. When you get down to the bottom of the funnel, if you've created a white paper that explains everything, you don't have to do one of those every week or every month. Something like that can last for a long time. But the awareness level, you need to really keep coming up with new ways to present the same kind of ideas to catch someone else's eye, and that is the more kind of fun, cheap, and cheerful thing. You want something that's going to get people's attention at the very broadest level, and that's needs to be done on a much more regular level.
Yeah, I always say that like successful content creation and marketing and communication is almost like a war of attrition. You're just trying to stick there. You're just trying to keep going back at it. And then you just keep on sort of changing your tactics around a little bit to see, well, this didn't work. Well, that didn't work. I didn't get much on this, but I'm going to try this time. And the more you do it, there's all kinds of tips and classes and what have you that you can do on like SEO, and keyword search. And then you can try to create some video and content around that, see if that works. Or if your company is in a certain industry and that's very trendy at this moment, all you have to do is pretty much put something up. So you never know. You could be looking for Bosch and find truck bikes.
We actually had an interesting question prior to the webinar starting from somebody attending, and I think this is a good one for us to kind of chat about with kind of 5 minutes remaining. Is it better to stick to proven methods for content marketing, or is it recommended to jump on popular trends applicable to your field if you see other companies having success with it?
Sure, why not? Try it out. Yeah, I think jumping on trends is important, especially if you're just trying to, like what Visa did around the Olympics, and that's what they always do with the Olympics, is they actually use the Olympics as a trend, as an event to essentially boxcar all of their ads and content onto, because people are going to be looking for it. I remember I think it was the Tokyo Olympics that got postponed till 2021. And everybody said, well, no one's going to be watching this and it's not going to be very good. And, they postponed it and killed all the buzz. But in the end, if you actually look at the statistics around social media from the sponsors, and a lot of the sponsors stayed away from it, but there was still awareness that, say, like Toyota was a sponsor, and there was great searches. There was a lot of search for like Toyota and the Olympics to see what they were doing. But again, a lot of the sponsors backed out of that because it was so unpopular with the Japanese public.
That's right. I remember that. But let me just say, when it comes to trends, though, yeah, definitely for a lot of trends, there's nothing to lose to try. Give it a try, see what happens. But I would say the exception is if it's something that costs a lot of money that you're going to have to invest in, like for virtual reality or augmented reality, those trends. I would say don't do it just to say that you've done it. You need to have a real reason of why you're trying that. If you're going to be investing in, convincing the people that hold the purse strings to give you money to try it, you shouldn't do it just to be a FOMO or a wannabe. You really need to have a reason for trying something new and expensive. But then if you can think of a good reason, yeah, go for it. And it might put you out there ahead of your competition.
I went into the metaverse for 1 hour once, and then I spent 2 hours afterwards, like sitting in a chair trying to get my inner ear to stop spinning.
Well, you're not the demographic, Chris.
Why wouldn't I be? Why wouldn't I be the demographic?
If I can just add to that, as a kind of a last point and a segue into what the next couple webinars that are coming up around marketing. Exploring popular trends and kind of new channels is really important for a growth strategy. But I think at the end of the day, it's about really understanding your brand positioning, who your target audience is, and kind of what really resonates with them. So for example, at Lantern, we've also looked at a number of other channels like, TikTok's so popular right now, right? Should we be on TikTok? And after kind of looking at our audience, probably not, and also we were looking at Reddit, content on Reddit. Is that something we want to explore? And so you have to really evaluate trends, and new channels from a perspective of your audience and your brand story, right? And so that actually leads to kind of our next panel happening, which is around brand storytelling. So if anybody's interested around that subject on how to tell an authentic brand story, that's coming up. I believe on the 1st or the 2nd. Nope, the 1st, next week, Thursday, doing our 2nd webinar with Click to View on brand storytelling, specifically for B2B businesses. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that, you can definitely tune in. We are at the end of the webinar. I think we have a few questions that we didn't manage to get through to, but I think what we'll do is actually we'll be sending out a thank you email at the end of this, and we could probably include some snippets from that as well to answer some of your questions. But before we end this, once again, I would love to thank Chris and David for taking time out of their busy schedule to join us today on this webinar. Thank you guys so much. This was very, very helpful, and hope that we can do something again in the future.
Thanks, Gracie.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
See ya. Thank you again. Bye-bye.